Hello everybody, welcome back to Norwich Talk, where we will be discussing a Norwich City win. Wow, that was a very interesting final 20 minutes to what was sort of setting itself up to be quite a boring game, quite a sort of scrappy 1-0 victory for Norwich. But we sit here after a game that Norwich have played thinking, my goodness, we've seen glimpses of what Norwich City are capable of. Myself and Connor put a podcast out yesterday, which has done quite well. Some really interesting comments in terms of there being a bit of unity around the idea that there's a disconnect and things aren't looking great and we aren't pleased with the football. But we now sit here more than 24 hours later quite satisfied. I listened to Canary Call on the way home, and there are a few comments about the idea that this doesn't change anything. And to be honest with you, in the large sort of, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really. But what it does do is it gives Dean Smith the opportunity to prove everyone, including myself, big time, wrong, which, again, fingers crossed, he will do. You look at the lineup ahead of the game, and I think most people's thoughts were Dean Smith has reached the point where it's changes for the sake of changes. It's throwing everything at the wall and kind of seeing what sticks. It kind of felt like that. Again, that comes from the previous few weeks of negativity and not feeling too great about Norwich. But that 11 until the first goal really played as well as you might think. Everything came through. Hernandez and Hayden was really good in the middle until they both came off. I think you kind of watched that game and Stoke should have taken the lead. And you sat there at Carrow Road just thinking, how is this going to change? How are Norwich City going to turn the tide in their favour? It wasn't sort of relentless pressure from Stoke until the first goal, but if any team was going to edge it, you kind of felt like Stoke were that team. They were playing some pretty good stuff at times. I think Morgan Fox, his crosses from the left and whoever their right back was, they were just constantly allowed to cross the ball in. And there was a massive chance for, I'm not sure who it was, might have been Nick Powell, I'm not sure. But there was a free header at the back post and they should take the lead there and Norwich get away with it. But that might have been at 1-0, sorry. But either way, Norwich just continued to allow cross after cross after cross into the box. And you kind of sat there thinking, something has to give at some point. But that wasn't to be. And I think it's about time Norwich had that sort of rub of the green in the sense of the first goal where Teemu Pukki, given that he was essentially feeding off scraps, was going to have to do something magical himself. And my goodness, it was wonderful. It was sort of vintage Teemu Pukki in the sense of he's just embarrassed the defender and fired a shot at goal. And, the instinct of a good attacker in terms of Aaron Ramsey's position is get yourself into a position where if the ball doesn't go in, you pick up the rebound. And he did that. And I'm quite glad that he scored. I'm happy for him. He seems like a decent lad. I think the jury's very much still out on whether he's brilliant or sort of that good, which is ironic because he played a big part in all the goals today, scoring twice, of course. But I'm delighted for him to that he got the goal. And until the second goal, everything just kind of seemed to stall along. And, one thing I do want to comment on is the booing when Hernandez came off. I understood it in the sense of I was a bit like, why is Hernandez coming off? But I'm not sure that's great for the players coming on. The same for Kieran Dowell coming off and the cheering at Kieran Dowell. By no means necessary do I think Kieran Dowell is particularly great. But Dean Smith had made a good point in his post-match press conference where he said he's come back from illness, and also it's just not very nice. It's not something you should really do to a player who doesn't warrant that. To a fan, it's just 5 seconds of booing someone. To Kieran Dowell, it could be a lot more. So I don't really see that as very necessary. But Todd Cantwell, let's talk about him. He came onto the pitch and he played like a man possessed. Very intense with his pressing, very confident on the ball, very progressive with the ball. And he was everything we've described that he can be, which was really, really wonderful. It was really good to see. And, he was cheering the crowd up as well, which is another aspect of the game that I think a lot of Norwich players lack in terms of that engagement with the crowd, that personality. But he came on the pitch and he changed the game. Will he play like that every other game for the rest of the season? We don't know. But he's kind of just given Dean Smith a gentle reminder. He's given us a gentle reminder. Look, I am pretty decent when I want to be. And, long may that continue. Nunez and Sarah made positive impacts when they came onto the pitch. I think, well, it's ironic really because, you know, Sarah scored, but I think Nunez had a bit more of an impact in terms of when he got the ball, it was always sort of positive passes. He got the ball quite a lot. There were times where I think both him and Sarah just kind of overcomplicated things, but I don't mind that because it's just, it's flair, it's personality, it's having a go, and you know, we weren't losing, so I was never going to get too frustrated at that. But just to wrap my thoughts up on the game, I'm really happy with today. I think it's a big 3 points for Norwich. We've seen glimpses of what they can do. You look at the past few weeks where our argument has essentially been, okay, results aren't going our way. Sometimes that happens in football. Sometimes you'll go through a short spell where you're just not winning games. But within those games, you want to see glimpses, and we hadn't really, whereas today we've got the result, but we've had 15, 20 minutes of Norwich City being at their very best, which when they were, they absolutely blew Stoke out of the water, a Stoke team who I think are pretty decent and should finish the season fairly strongly with a good manager, Alex Neil, of course. You know, we're very familiar with him, but I'm very pleased with that one. Next video, no idea. To be honest with you, Norwich got another big game on Wednesday against QPR. A very tough test. You know, they're doing very well, although they lost today. So fingers crossed we can take advantage of that. However that may look, whatever that even means, to be honest with you. But you'll probably see me after then. Your thoughts? I'd love to know them in the comments down below. Who your man of the match was for me today? I'll probably have to give it to Todd Cantwell or Aaron Ramsey. Those two, I think they're definitely up there. I know Aaron Ramsey scored 2 and was on the pitch the whole time, but the way Cantwell changed the game for me was phenomenal. And the goals today were just, I think, especially the second one, just absolutely brilliant. That second goal, I kind of looked at my dad and thought, where on earth has that come from? It's some wonderful link-up play. Fingers crossed we can see a bit more of that. But we'll see where we are on Wednesday against QPR. So until next time, I'll see you again very, very soon.